Hi, welcome to CodeRage 11. This is Marco Cantu, Delphi Product Manager at Embarcadero Technologies, and I'm here to present a session on Delphi today and tomorrow. This is my contact information, my email and Twitter account, and beside being the Product Manager for Delphi at Embarcadero Technologies, I'm a longtime Delphi guru and author of 20 plus books on the language, including the latest of the Pascal handbook that covers the programming language itself. So what we're going to cover in this session is basically I'm trying to see where the product is today and what's coming along, focusing on the change to the roadmap and the development model with a focus on Berlin and the update 1 and update 2 of RStudio Berlin and Delphi Berlin, and also focusing on the product, the core value proposition, and its directions. So let's start by looking to the roadmap. This is the last published roadmap, from last August, and the full information is on the Embarcadero community site. And being a roadmap has a disclaimer that we don't know if these features will be made available and in which time frame. It's just an indication of what's coming along. There are a couple of things that are relevant for the roadmap more than reading into individual features and line items. Of course, there are broad areas like Linux server and frameworks and language quality and enhancements. But there is also a very significant change, which is the pace of delivery and the delivery model, in which we are going back towards a yearly release cycle from a 6-month release cycle that we used the last few years. The plan is to inject updates with new features within the product cycle, and that's something we have just started doing. The difference is that if we go to a yearly release cycle with updates, your DCU, BPL, third-party components will remain compatible within the entire cycle. The updates might require full install, but they are DCU compatible. The other reason, there are many reasons that make this possible. One is certainly the fact that our customers have been asking us to go back to a yearly cycle because of the issue with third-party components and the difficulty in migrating projects from version to version. And third-party component vendors have also been asking us to go back to this model. Now, there was a reason that was difficult because we need to keep moving the product and keep delivering support for new operating systems and new features within the yearly cycle. But now that all customers are under update subscription, there are no more financial, fiscal, or other reasons preventing us to deliver any feature that we deem appropriate in an update. So in practical terms, this means we released update 1 in September. We are releasing update 2 in November, and the next major release is still a few months away. Because, again, we are moving from a 6-month release cycle to a yearly release cycle with significant updates. And updates have features. We deliver the native iOS grid for FireMonkey in update 1. That was a main addition for those using the iOS platform. We are delivering a new VCL calendar control, actually 2 controls, with the same calendar model, part of the new WinRT UI, and support for deployment through the Windows Desktop Bridge and the creation of Apex packages right from the Delphi IDE, as we'll see in a second. Also adding quick edit designers and new styles, so there is actually a lot coming along in terms of features and capabilities in update 2. Of course, we're also focused in building the next version of the product, which will have many different features, but the most relevant one is certainly being a Delphi compiler and a C++ compiler for Linux 64-bit platforms. This will include all server-side technologies from core runtime library, database access, client and server web technologies, FARDAC, JSON, XML processing, and many other features. It will not include, at least in the first release, a FireMonkey, VCL, or any other sort of UI toolkit. We don't really want to focus on client-side Linux development, client-side Linux being extremely small in terms of customer adoption and company adoption. The focus is squarely on server-side, whether it's utilities that run in the background, or standalone web services or other type of socket applications, or when it's Apache integrated modules deployed to Linux. There will be, again, more in this release than the Linux compiler, but that's clearly the main target. So if that's the change in the roadmap, and these are the plans, where the product is today, and where is the technology focused, I could start with a marketing view of the product. This is the two-line description that we refer to, the fastest way to build cross-platform native applications with cloud services and IoT connectivity. However, rather than going through this item in this model and order, I'd rather switch to a more technical view of the product, highlighting 5 pillars of the Delphi model and the Delphi world. Fantastic language, extensive runtime library with platform integration, great UI, either VCL or FireMonkey, first-class database support, and web connectivity. So let's start with the first one, which is the language. Delphi has a great modern object-oriented programming language. Even if you hear people mentioning it's an old language, it's not by any count. Delphi was started in 95, the year many other languages came along, from Java to JavaScript. But it evolved significantly beyond the RAD and pure object-oriented model, adding generics, closures, reflection, attributes, and features that don't just extend the language, but provide completely new models in terms of development approach and coding style. It has one of the fastest compilers available, now supporting larger projects and faster compilation of code that uses generics. The fast compiler has a lot of advantages. You can have a very simple build, debug cycle, but still going through compiled code. And it's actually plurals, compilers, because we're not shipping one compiler, actually shipping a large family of compilers for 32 and 64-bit on 4 different operating systems, plus the simulator, which is kind of a target in its own. There are language features under consideration because we love the Delphi language, but of course we always want more features. Nullable types is one of the top priorities, and that is likely going to come along with custom record initializers and finalizers for technical reasons. Nullable types is the ability to have native type that is definable as having no value, like it happens on JSON or databases, where rather than having a value set to 0 or some predefined special value, you clearly mark it as nullable. Nullable has effect on arithmetic and a lot of operations, so it's really, to have full implementation, needs to be done deeply into the compiler. We also plan a few syntax enhancements, just try to make life easier to developers. Of course, there is another big area of language / compiler evolution, which is targeting new platforms, starting with Linux Intel 64-bit, but we'll also consider for the future post-Godzilla, other ARM targets, and other 64-bit platforms. The other key element of the technology is VCL. If you're focused on Windows development, that remains the best library you can use with largest backwards compatibility, but best support for today's and coming technologies. VCL had wonderful wrapping for the plain Windows API and COM libraries, and now comes with great integration of the WinRT subsystem that's new in Delphi in Windows 10. We offer this deep WinRT integration, but we also have ready-to-use WinRT services components. We offer a lot of styling to modernize existing application without a rewrite with a new system, and also tend to offer significant compatibility between Windows 7 and Windows 10, so your code would run on both platforms. And that might seem obvious, but it's actually not, because if you embrace the Microsoft WinRT model, then your applications will exclusively run on WinRT and require mostly a very significant rewrite, even if you're using recent Microsoft technologies. So why focusing on Windows 10? Why isn't Windows 7 enough? Well, because Windows 10 is growing fast. It has a distinct look and feel that you should try to embrace, and has specific features that are really worth supporting. And I'll get specifically to the deployment, because that's one key element, one key advantage of Windows 10 compared to past versions. So which are some of the directions for the VCL? Well, basically one of the points is improving on core controls that provide us with WinRT look and feel, but with no dependency of the new subsystem, so your applications work on Windows 7. We deliver 5 of these controls in 10 Seattle, and now adding 1 in update 2 of Berlin. We're also improving the IDE designers and trying to keep focused on quality. This is the new VCL control, and I'll do a short demo later. The other thing that's critical is the Windows Store support. Microsoft has introduced this Windows Desktop Bridge as part of the Windows 10 anniversary update in summer 2016. And through this Desktop Bridge technology, they are also opening up the store as a way to distribute and deploy applications in an ad hoc, so a direct or enterprise-based distribution, or through the physical store. What you are building with the Desktop Bridge technology is an Apex package, which is type of Universal Windows Platform package for Microsoft. There is a specific session I'm giving the last day of CodeRage that focuses on Windows 10 support, so you might want to join that session for more information. What we are doing at the IDE level is having integrated support for the Windows 10 store, so you can just pick some standard settings for the application and pick a application store configuration compared to the normal or debug deployment. That's very similar to what we're doing for the mobile platforms and fully integrated into the IDE. The other designer feature we're adding is called Quick Edits. It's new designers that really simplify standard basic ways to interact with forms and controls, create the basic layout of new forms by making some of the most common operations faster than in the past. This includes different things. There is a quick design for forms. There is a simple way to add common controls and components. And there is an editor that is available for each control with fast way to go and change the name, caption, and modify alignment, layout, and color if available. Color is not available for a button. So again, trying to simplify and make it fast to do extremely common operations rather than having to reach multiple entries of the object inspector. Before we go to FireMonkey and the cross-platform development, let me do a short demo of the Update 2 support for calendar and the desktop bridge. So this is a new VCL application. I'm going to pick the calendar view. It's a very nice interactive calendar with a lot of settings and configurations. You can determine the first day of the week. You can customize and even do custom painting of the individual cells. Let me run the application because that's where you get a good feeling of the behavior, the scrolling between month and month, the navigation to the year view, and scrolling among years, jumping to the decade view, and then back to a given date of a given year. The other feature that's available, as I mentioned, is the fact that there's a new target platform, application store, and through some project options that you get set by default, including logos and other version information, what you can do is really directly and very simply target the Apex format and do a project deployment to that format. You need to provide a certificate for ad hoc distribution or specific entries for the store application identity. In the project options, you need to make sure you have your certificate file properly configured in the provisioning page, and then you can just do project deploy, and the system is going to create an Apex package for you. And this is the package you can install on a Windows 10 Anniversary Edition machine once the certificate is known to the target computer. Or alternatively, you can create a store account and publish to the store. As I mentioned, there are several things you can do in terms of customizing the calendar. It has a lot of different features, range, selections, colors. One thing I wanted to cover here is the ability to do custom drawing of a day item. And here you receive calendar view information and draw params. To do custom drawing of the cells, we need to use some date utils to determine the day of the week of the current date. So we can pick the calendar view info. And one of the information is the date of the current cell being painted. And so we can pick the day of week function and say if that's the first day of the week. What we want to do is to modify the drawing parameters so that the foreground color of the foreground element is actually red. So we want to paint the Sundays in red. Let's run this, and you can see this is the corresponding output regardless of the year. There are given days that are printed in red, and there are many other elements, graphical elements you can customize in the grid. So having seen some of these new Windows features, let me focus a little on cross-platform native development with FireMonkey. Again, as I mentioned, we have compilers for 4 different operating systems, different CPU families, and both 32-bit and 64-bit targets. Compiling code for these platforms offers maximum performance and the best security model. And this is achieved through the compilers, through the runtime library, which is extensively binds to the native platforms, and through the FireMonkey Visual Component Library that's focused on creating the user interface only once and customize it at design time with integrated viewers or previewing on device, and then deploying the same UI on different platforms and different form factors. Both through styling or platform components, the FireMonkey library really lets you target mobile and desktop with a single UI model. The cross-platform library, as I mentioned, includes full runtime integration with the operating systems, but also common services like memory management, file system threading, exceptions, data access, XML, JSON, HTTP processing, REST clients, cloud operations, and many other core features that are part of all platforms. The FireMonkey architecture is critical. The rendering architecture allows you to use the same controls with the same features at design time and runtime, but pick a styled approach where the control is rendered by FireMonkey with the GPU-driven rendering styling platform, or is rendered by instantiating the physical operating system control, and rendering happens through the control itself, providing the best integration and platform look and feel. This is available for iOS and Windows. We are plan extending Z-order and native controls to the Android platform in the future, and keep focusing on a good mix and good balance of styled and platform controls going forward. The other big focus of FireMonkey is to keep covering new features in mobile platforms, new enhancements of the platforms, and improving on the quality and integration of the desktop support. Windows 10 styles for FireMonkey and VCL are part of this evolution, and they're also part of Update 2. Last, I want to focus on our outstanding enterprise focus, centered around FireDAC, our optimized universal database access that lets you hook to all major enterprise databases and support NoSQL databases like MongoDB. This is part of the enterprise service architecture that you can create by yourself or leveraging RAD server as a way to host REST APIs that allow easy reach of different type of clients, mobile, desktop, Delphi, or standard technologies, JavaScript, whatever else you want to use on the client side, with a solid enterprise service foundation, again, based around RAD server or based around custom hosted and custom defined APIs. Most of the improvements in this area will come from the Linux integration. Linux is critical for deployment for all types of applications. It's critical for cloud deployment and is increasingly important for business and enterprise level services. So we plan hosting DataSnap and hosting RAD server on Linux along with FireDAC database access. Let me finish with 2 words on RAD server before we wrap up with the final part. RAD server is the perfect ready-to-use backend for RAD Studio apps. You can build your own solution using either libraries, or you can adopt a ready-to-use solution that allows you to publish your REST endpoints, integrating with FireDAC or cloud or backend as a service provider middleware, and adding ready-to-use application service like user management, analytics, and even a beacon fence location of customers within indoor locations. With RAD server, you can easily create REST endpoints, integrate with your data wherever it lives and devices, add application services, add users and other features that are readily available as part of the infrastructure, deploy on your private system or on a cloud, track and manage users and analyze the actual usage of the system, and build easily Delphi and C++ Builder clients, or leverage support of an open platform for building JavaScript clients or clients with other technologies. So if this is the roundup of the features and product directions, let me do a recap. Why Delphi? Because rapid application development means faster development without giving up an extremely solid and robust architecture. Delphi delivers faster development across desktop and mobile and across many different backends without tying you to one specific solution or platform in terms of cloud or database, because we don't own or we don't push you towards a specific solution, but give you the freedom to use a product or whatever architecture you prefer. At a glance, Berlin added a new installer, new native libraries, IoT, technology, quality, developer productivity, and enterprise strong data and cloud access. And update 1 and update 2 have been pushing in the same direction along the same lines. Finally, I want to cover one concern that we have been hearing and we think it's extremely important for the product, that is making it more available to more people to learn it, understand it, experiment with it, and be ready to join companies that need Delphi developers, or just keep using it for non-professional projects. There are multiple different initiatives that are being done with the goal of increasing the number of active Delphi developers. One is a new academic initiative. The idea is that schools and universities can ask for licenses of Delphi for the labs, but also to be given individually to students for the school year completely for free. There was in the past a way to buy heavily discounted copies, but this is an initiative to give RadStudio Professional with mobile support to schools and universities. Just if you know anyone who's interested, suggest them to ask their local sales or the Embarcadero partner in the country. The other initiative is been discounting the starter edition 100%. That is making it available for free to non-professionals. That's the limitation that starter has. So they can experiment with the Delphi Win32 with both VCL and FireMonkey and a load of great features, enough to run a miniature airport, as someone mentioned recently, in this package. So this is a great way to get back to Delphi or to start using the product for your non-professional work, and then anytime migrate and upgrade to professional or enterprise editions. We're also doing new marketing initiatives. For example, the bootcamp that was done early September that had a tremendous success, or again, spreading out the product through the starter edition. So always interested in your feedback and new ideas, but there is a lot of activity around increasing the number of active developers and specifically targeting younger generations. So with that, I want to thank you for attending this session live at CodeRage or later on online. If you're live at CodeRage, we can open it up for questions. If not, just feel free to email me anytime in the future. Thanks a lot and have a great CodeRage.
Okay, so there's a few questions here. We're going to go through them. One question was, in the last session, Kerry Jensen shared his link. He has a collection of keyboard shortcuts for the Delphi IDE. So there are a few questions around that, where there would be a way that we could include that inside the IDE, a listing of all the keyboard shortcuts, and also if there's a way to customize more of those keyboard shortcuts.
I think the list of the keyboard shortcuts is in fact in the help. It might be a little too hidden, but it is there. The problem with the keyboard shortcut is exactly that they are heavily customizable. We have different key bindings for the IDE that you can pick and select, and that changed significantly a lot of your keyboard mappings. Not all of them, but a lot of your keyboard mappings. So that's, for example, one reason why having a comprehensive list is complex, because there isn't one list. There is a list for each of the keyboard bindings that are predefined, and you can define your own. You can customize key mappings with wizards and extensions to the IDE. So there are actually many different ways people end up customizing, and there are some common IDE plugins that add further shortcuts or replace some of our shortcuts with different ones, because we kind of exhausted all the key combinations. So it's easy to find someone that reuses the same key combination, because it's hard to find. There are only so many letters and Control-Alt-Shift combination that you can use on a keyboard.
Yeah. Okay. The new Windows 10 components you're showing, like the calendar, do those work in Windows 7 and Windows 8 and Windows Vista, or are they only for Windows 10?
The VCL components, those that we added in 10 Seattle and this new one in Berlin Update 2, they are all completely written in the VCL. So they mimic the user interface and user experience. There's actually a lot of animations and behavior in the calendar of the WinRT counterpart, but they don't require WinRT in any way. They're just rebuilt completely in VCL, so they work basically on any version of Windows. That's different from using the WinRT specific features like the notification control for Windows. That requires Windows 10. And if you plan building on the desktop bridge, the deployment of desktop bridge application, the deployment of Apex directly or through the store requires Windows 10 anniversary update. So this the last summer release of Windows 10. So that's really fairly strict. And for developing Windows 10, I mean, again, for the desktop bridge, you really need to have the latest Windows 10 SDK, not the original one, a more recent one that we installed with the product, but you can download from Microsoft and install manually. And that Microsoft claims it runs on Windows 7 and Windows 8. We've had a lot of difficulty getting it to execute on older version of Windows. It runs on any Windows 10. But again, if you want to test the Apex, click and install, something I'm going to demo in my later sessions on Thursday, that really requires having Anniversary Edition as your platform.
So there's a few comments here about BiDi. Is that something we're considering for down the road, or where's the status of BiDi for Android?
BiDi for Android will get much closer once we have the support for the platform controls. This is currently scheduled for Godzilla updates, not for Godzilla. So we'll see when we will be able to have that. That will not imply automatically BiDi throughout the entire system, but will certainly be a significant step in enabling even third parties to deliver well-integrated native controls, and that can certainly open up BiDi through the native engine.
Okay, excellent. Good. Look forward to that. So the examples that you're showing, do those work in Starter Edition, or what's available in Starter Edition compared to other editions? I guess maybe.
Calendar control is in Starter Edition. That's part of the VCL. The Centennial Windows Desktop Bridge support, the automatic deployment, that's not in Starter Edition. That's the only feature in Update 2 that's not in Starter Edition. The quick edits work in Starter Edition, well, work in all edition as far as I know. So the only new feature that's not in Starter is the Centennial deployment.
Okay. Well, and then yeah, also Starter Edition does not include Android support, right?
It does not include mobile support. We are actually honestly looking into potentially having a starter with mobile platforms, but that's just a discussion at this point in time. I mean, feel free to ask for it and email us and push for it because that's being evaluated, but it's not something available today.
Yeah, that'll be exciting, especially for people just getting into it and stuff. Is it possible to include week numbers in the calendar component so the week numbers can be set ISO standard regardless of regional settings?
That's a very good question, but I need to try it out to have the answer. So maybe we can go along with another question while I'm trying.
Okay. Also on the calendar control, how far back does it support dates?
I think you can. I mean, you can set the first and last year as a configuration, but I'm not sure we've tested it with dates going really much backwards. So I don't know for sure. I mean, there is a first year that you can type into, but if you type, I don't know, -5,000, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we have show day of week. We have show first of group label. I don't know what that is. Oh, okay. It shows the month in the first day of the month. Yeah, I'm not sure about the week. I know there are a lot of options, and again, it can be customized. Number of weeks in view is an option. Minimum year, last year, first year. Header info has a bunch of settings. First day, we can change the first day of week. Yeah, I thought there was a way to display the week, but I need to double check it. It doesn't show up immediately. So.
Well, if not, we can put a feature request in for that, and we can see.
You can put in a feature request, but again, you can also say if it's Sunday, I want to customize the output of that by adding some information like a small number with the week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there is a lot of owner draw, self draw support. So if the feature is not in, which I thought it was, there's still room for customizing the display.
Do you have, what about Apache support for Windows Apache?
Support for Windows Apache has been around for quite some time.
That's what's up.
I'm not sure I remember when it was introduced, but it's been several years that we have Apache module support for web broker, and so all of the following, all of the technologies that piggyback on web broker as well.
What's the how much emphasis or focus are we planning to put on Android, considering it's more common than iOS now?
Oh, we are putting a lot of focus on Android. In fact, we're just kind of trying to rewrite and redefine our entire support for the Android platform for good reasons. It's certainly very popular. Although it has popular with specific patterns in terms of countries and population and type of users, like in the business world. If you look at the business world, certainly iOS has a larger penetration than if you look at the user base in general. But Android is absolutely key and relevant, and I've personally been a big fan of Android. I've had Android phones as personal phones for a long time, and not really plan switching to iOS. No, Android is critical, is important. We are doing a lot of work on it. It is challenging for several accounts, from the fact that the NDK at times is a bit of a second-class citizen, while on iOS the development is native. There's no other way. And the other challenge for Android is the diverse a number of versions of the operating system you have to support, because basically today you have to support from 4.1 to, the entire 4 series. From 4.4 is still there, and then there's 5 and 6 and 7. So it's like, wow. It's really spread out, and the adoption is extremely slow compared to iOS. So that creates quite some challenging for us and for anyone targeting Android, not just customers using RAS Studio.
So there's a question here from David, kind of a comment saying that he just installed update 2, but apparently he's on Starter and he can't access Android. Is wanting to know if there's a way he could try Android for 30 days for free, like he can with Xamarin.
Yeah, I mean, if you download the trial, you can download the trial. I don't think you can download the trial on the same physical machine or same VM where you have Starter, because Starter doesn't really coexist very well with other releases of the same version. I mean, if you have 10 Seattle, fine, I mean, there's no conflict. But to Berlin, I mean, Starter and non-Starter, trial and non-trial don't really coexist very well on the same machine. But other than that, yeah, you can get the trial. The trial gives 30 days of Android development support. And the other thing that I wanted to tackle is for universities, what we released last month, well, actually 2 months ago, it was early September, is actually the idea that every university, every school can ask for licenses for free. I mean, there is a process. We need to acknowledge that it's really a legitimate school, but other than that, there used to be a cost associated with academic licensing. Now it's free, and not only we are providing, I don't know, let's say 100 licenses which are network license for the lab of the school or university, but we can provide the same number or a similar number of licenses as individual licenses. I think that 9 months licenses, that's kind of the school year license for the individual student, so they can actually install the same software at home. And this is not Starter, this is RadStudio Professional, including mobile, for students, and of course you can publish or make any money on the resulting applications.
Now, Alf's asking, saying, like, for example, if you're doing academic research or creating applications around academic research or for support of other schools or support of students, is that something you can use the Academic or Starter Edition to distribute those apps with?
If the application is a research application, I think that fits into the model. I guess we need to take it offline. I mean, to go to the extreme, if the university uses Delphi to create an application to manage the teacher's payroll, no, that's clearly out of scope because that's a business app. Even if it's internal, I mean, it's not sold for profit, but it's used internally by the university to manage the application, the university itself. So that would be out of scope. If it's used for a research project that, I don't know, students distribute to their friends to track information that's part of a research project, that might be in scope. But we can certainly, I mean, have an email conversation about that.
Yeah, so that's good. Good idea. Just follow up with you on email. So there's a question here about debugging under OS X Sierra, if that was fixed in Update 2.
No, that was not fixed in Update 2. Actually, it got broken very recently, fairly late in the Update 2 cycle. We have 2 debugger issues at this point. I think we nailed in a fix for Win64 C++, but we have a couple of significant debugger issues open, and we are considering a hotfix post Update 2 or some way to deliver these fixes when available, but before we get to the next major release. So stay tuned for that. I can't promise because I don't know how much time it will take us to actually have a fix, but the goal is to try to work on debugger fixes post Update 2.
Excellent. With Update 2, do you have to uninstall Update 1, or do you just install Update 2 and it keeps your settings, or how does that upgrade process work?
We have improved and modified the process compared to Update 1, specifically for the Get It installer, to allow keeping your registry settings, including third-party packages. And we have seen some success in that. Having that this is a very delicate area, so It's hard to be 100% sure that nothing will break. The important rule is that given how the registry is structured, you need to use the same installer. So if you installed with the standalone installer, the legacy ISO, then you should rather do the same, or remove everything and reinstall from scratch. The same if you use getit for the first install, you can follow up and try to use getit for the following up install. Getit uninstaller does clean up the registry, but it takes a snapshot first and then reapplies the registry information to your configuration. So the idea is that it will preserve your configuration settings. And I've personally tried on my machine, and it did work, but it hopefully it will work for everyone. But you need to keep the same installer. Now, if you don't know which installer to use, that someone asked on my blog an hour ago, there is one difference in the IDE itself. So if you open the IDE before starting the process and go to Tools, you might have or not have a Manage Platforms menu item, which is where you can add or remove or modify the installed platforms if you use the getit installer. So if you have the platform selection, if you have the Tools Manage Platform menu, you use getit. If you don't have it, you use the ISO installer. That's one way to spot the difference between the two.
There's a question here about code template editor in Delphi, similar like we had in Delphi 7. Is that something available in Berlin or will be available in the future?
I think the code template editor is available. I don't think it was really ever removed, although it might be tricky to get to it. Yeah, if you do view code, what is that? I need to find it. Sorry, I haven't used it in a bit. Code templates, view code templates. Okay, so there's a view code templates pane. Somewhere I found it by searching in help inside. And then it has some templates, and there's a new code template button that's available. So it is should be view code templates. I don't see it on the menu, which is odd. Well, anyway, I found the window. So just looking for code templates in the help inside in the small ID search box, and then you can create new templates or edit the existing ones.
Okay. Are there plans to update some of the older VCL controls like DB Grid with new features, for example, colors and such?
Upgrading in terms of maintaining, yes. DB Grid had, I think a few versions back, we enabled styling support for DB Grid, so you can apply, assign any of the style, including these new Windows 10 styles, to the DB Grid, and it will properly adapt to the more modern UI. In terms of revamping, rewriting the DB Grid, no, that's not currently planned. However, we fixed a couple of nasty bugs in the DB Grid this cycle, so that's good.
A lot of people are excited about some of the new features, excited about the academic initiative. It's great to hear. When moving from Visual Studio to Rad Studio, it seems that the latter is a bit less stable. So actually, I guess in the last few versions, we made a lot of stability improvements around Rad Studio.
We did mostly by moving it to full support for the 4 GB that Win32 provides, because it is a Win32 app. And that helped a lot with stability, specifically when working or building very large applications. And we need to get to the specific. We have customers that have experienced an extremely stable couple of releases. We have customers that have experienced instabilities. And now it's hard to tell if it depends on the specific features of the product they're using, if it depends on specific third-party plugins they have installed, if it depends on the application, their code or any self-built components or packages. It might depend on the platform they're targeting, the language they're using. So there are lots of combinations. We do have some customers that are extremely happy of the progress of the last few releases, but we do have customers that are having trouble. So, and again, I'm available, marco.cantu and embarcadero.com, to follow up on any specific case or scenario, and more than willing to spend time to reproduce issues and look for and fix them. Because if we can't reproduce the issue, then it becomes extremely difficult to look for a solution.
Yeah, I've actually worked with people a few times to help get those connections made, because it's one of those things is if once you can find it and reproduce it, then it's easy to fix. Well, easier to fix, but if you can't find it and reproduce it, then yeah, it's not, you can't fix it, as we all know as developers. Is it possible to have a future add-on for Delphi Pro which gives us the ability to develop and test REST endpoints, location tracking, or IoT edgeware with RAD server?
Right now, the development support for RAD server is part of Enterprise and not Pro. I'm, as much as I like the idea of providing add-on, I mean, a la carte versions to on top of Pro, like we today offer mobile and offer the client server pack. I mean, adding yet another optional pack becomes a development and support nightmare, because people can have like, it's not just one other option, but it's one other option on top of 2-3 other combinations. So it's plus, I mean, multiply by the languages, multiply by the platforms and SKUs, and if it's RAD or standalone. So adding one feature implies like another 20 or so scenarios that we need to test. So we can consider it, but we are really trying to add options when they are extreme. I mean, we think they'll be extremely popular.
So here's a personal question, Marco, if people should expect any more books from you in the near future.
I wish I had the time. I'm still toying with some projects, some book projects, although I'm also toying with other projects for teaching that are not books. Yeah, I mean, it was difficult over the last few years, even before I joined the company, but since I joined, this became even more complicated. I will keep updating my language book when new language features will come out. That's a commitment I took. I am trying to take existing material and clean it up a bit, modernize it, and to support the most recent features. Icon things like VCL, runtime library, threading, ID itself, but it takes a lot of time, so no promise.
Thank you so much for the session here, and for all the hard work you do on moving Delphi forward.
Okay, thanks a lot to those who attended.